This week's edition of The Squared Circle is dedicated to the memory of Lanny Poffo, the genius, who passed away on February the 2nd, 2023, aged 68. Lanny was one of the true friends of the Squared Circle and was in fact the very first guest on the Squared Circle all the way back in 2005. Following that, I myself developed a really close relationship with Lanny to the point where he had a load of videotapes with him in action in the ring and on various talk shows, Regis and Kathy Lee, a few other talk show segments that he'd had over the years, and he actually posted them from his home in Largo, Florida, all the way over to Bournemouth, UK, for me to digitize, copy over. It was a weird process, copy over to DVD and then rip those DVDs so you could get digital files of the tapes, and he used those on his new website. Sort of from that point developed a really close relationship with Lanny, and we check in with each other quite often, to the point where in 2007 on a family trip over to Orlando, Florida, he actually drove down from Largo in Florida, where he lived, to Orlando just to visit myself and my family and give me some free merch. I had a classic WWE Genius figure that he signed along with both of his books that are available on Amazon and well worth a read, so check those out if you can. All signed, which was really nice. And he also, my dad happened to mention that he had a bit of a sore neck after the flight from London, and Lanny went over to him and gave him a neck massage, which I can still remember the look on my dad's face when those big hands literally ruined his neck even more. Really fun memories of Lanny. Over the past years he's been traveling the world and enjoying himself, and is a really sad loss to the wrestling community, and again as a friend. I think he's probably one of the only sort of prominent wrestlers I ever developed a really true friendship with. He was the inspiration to a lot of people, including Rob Van Dam, who based a lot of his style on Lanny Poffo's work, and you can see that if you YouTube some of Lanny's stuff before he was the genius, before he had to play that effeminate character. He was very much a high flyer and innovative in some of his work that he did in the ring. So this episode of the Squared Circle is dedicated to the memory of Leaping Lanny Poffo, the genius. Rest in peace, my friend. And can't say enough nice things about the man. Here's the rest of the Squared Circle.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Squared Circle podcast. Andy here, joined as always by my guest at this time. He's not really my guest, he's my co-host. So I can't really call him a guest because he's not a guest, he's my co-host. It's Stefan Bennett. Stefan, how you doing, my friend?
Right. Yeah, not bad, Andy. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, really good, really good. And it's been an interesting week because we are now broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, and the Twitter machine. So three big destinations. Stefan, we've got social media contacts to give away in just a second, and we have got a ramped up show, including the newsline, including talking point, including top picks. But before we do that, this might as well happen. So joining us now on the line is my longtime close friend. It's Karl Atlas. How you doing, Karl?
Hey man, yeah, it's a pleasure to be on, and it's been a while, right?
How long has it been? Because I think the last time you and I actually saw each other was Kapow in Waterlooville.
Oh right, yeah. So we're going back it must be coming up to close to a decade, surely. It's been a long time. Let's put it that way. My memory is pretty fuzzy, but it's been a long time. Yeah, I remember beating you up.
Yeah, all right.
Just by that comment, Carl's now become my favourite person.
Yeah, but you know what, Stefan? Every time Karl and I met in a promotion, whether or not, I was just a guest, right? He ended up beating me up. At one point, he put me through a table.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of my calling card. Like, if I can throw someone through a table, I'm going to.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be me all the time.
Well, it was, it was about trying to build a relationship with you guys. You had an audience, and I thought, right, let's tap into that. Let's create some cool moments, and we did, and it was good fun.
But you could have put Dan through a table, not me. It didn't have to be me all the time. It could have been Dan.
It could have been, but no, it was more fun beating you up.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, mate. Cheers for
that. But yeah, man, I'm doing really well.
Good. Now, I've heard that this is possibly your last year in the business. Is that right?
I've been putting it out there on social media a little bit through my Facebook page that I definitely feel that I'm on the wind down. I've not put a stringent time frame on it. I'm kind of saying to myself more than anything else, I've got maybe a year or two. There's a few things that I want to do before I fully close the door on it. And even then, when I say I'm closing the door on it, what I really mean is that I'll be massively reducing what I'm doing at the moment. I still would like to carry on doing things with my little promotion, Hex Pro. I'd still like to be kind of involved in some of the local shows like KWE, and just help my friends out and keeping my toe in the water, mainly for my son. I've got a 5-year-old boy, Cooper, and he loves it, and he loves the fact that Dad's a wrestler. And I think it would probably hurt him more than it would me if I completely set cold turkey, like no more wrestling. So yeah, I'm definitely kind of at the point of like, I just need to wind down a little bit for several reasons.
I mean, you've really been going for 20 odd years now, haven't you? From the tag team, Beer Fueled Violence, which is long-time listeners of TSC will know was where we first met you, where Lee and I first met you in Ferndown in Dorset was Beer Fueled Violence, right the way through to becoming the big league world heavyweight champion in Exeter, to becoming the Ultimate Pro Wrestling world champion, to really everything in between. You've had quite a run in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, it's been on and off, and I've not reached the pinnacles that a lot of guys do because, I've never really been able to say that I'm a career wrestler. Like, I've never been the full time on the road doing the camps and everything full time. I've always managed to just do enough to stay sort of somewhat relevant in certain key markets. And that Southwest market, that Dorset area, they really sort of welcomed me in, and Big League was a huge part of that, and I've spoken about that a lot before, and I credit them with an awful lot with a rejuvenation of my career, if that's what you want to call it. So Big League was a huge factor in that, and then that transmorphed into UPW, and they kind of kept the thing going after the COVID restrictions lifted. So that's been a gift. I've been very fortunate to be involved with both of those promotions, but yeah, on and off I've been around for a fair old while, and yes, I've always been a weekend warrior, and it's not so much about the age as it is the mileage. I have my particular style of wrestling. Certainly, again, with Big League and UPW, I saw my unique selling point as the fact that I was willing to do the stuff that other people weren't, and I was going to do some of the crazy hardcore bumps and the big, falls off of whatever I could get my hands on, and that takes its toll. So,
I can imagine it does, because you can only take bumps for so many times. I mean, I've taken a couple. I think you trained me at one point, and before you shoved me through a table, and they do hurt. Depending.
Yeah. It's always the small things. A lot of wrestlers will tell you it's always the kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back. It won't be the big crazy bumps that kill you. It'll be the bump after that, because you've done something, your body's, in trauma, and then all of a sudden you could take a drop toe hold and pull your shoulder out, But like, I used to pride myself on being fairly indestructible. Like, again, because I wasn't full time and I was prepared to take those risks. And like in your 20s, you're made of rubber. And so I was able to take a lot more of that and not feel it, you know, and it wouldn't bother me. And, you know, I'm in my 30s now, and there's things that are hurting have stayed around a lot longer. I did my shoulder in a match with Simon Miller. I took something off the top of a ladder. Not, you know, I'm not blaming him at all. It's just, yeah, you know, he happened to be in the match. I took this fall, and at the time I felt all right, and I was like, oh, something's pinching. But for months afterwards, I had trouble with my shoulder and my mobility in my shoulder and my hands and things like that. I had to go and get physio. And recently, just something as simple as I do like a kind of a springboard crossbody out of the corner, and I sort of landed heavy on someone's knee, and my ribs all through the Christmas period, all through New Year, were just bruised. They like in a way that they just wasn't going away like it used to, and that you start to realize, like, oh, okay, I can't really do too many more of these. You know, I can't pick my son up, I can't go to work and breathe comfortably. Like, that's when it becomes a problem.
And I suppose the thing is, well, I mean, like you said, you're a weekend warrior. You know, you go out there and compete on the weekend and all that type of thing. To have those injuries going into your day job, where, I mean, you're a teacher, right? So going into, you know, I can just imagine you in a class trying to do a lesson, holding your ribs with a tape over the back of it, saying I can't move. that must really kind of take it out of you. Must kind of bring it home.
It's the ones where you can't sleep. So my shoulder. There were times where I couldn't get comfortable, and I sleep on predominantly on my right side, and I couldn't do that, and I had to sleep on my left, and same with my ribs, you know. And then you're tired and you're fatigued, and you've got to be, in my line of work, you've got to be on point for the hours that you're in, and you just feel like you're not hitting your stride and things like that, and that then has a mental toll on you as well, because you always feel like, oh, you're always playing catch up with yourself. And that's when it gets difficult. Like physical pain, not too bad, but the fatigue and the mental stress it puts on you is where it really starts to hurt me in my job. And again, I love my work. I love wrestling equally as much, if I could be honest about them. So I want to be able to do them both well. But if one's got to go, long-term plans for my future, I'm going to have to wind down the wrestling, unfortunately.
Well, you know, not winding it down just yet, because you mentioned Hex Pro, which is the new promotion that you've been running for about just over a year now, right? So it's been going for about a year, 18 months. Before that was Kapow. I mean, for those who didn't know excuse me, my voice is going. I might need Stefan to jump in a minute. For those of you who don't know what Kapow was, I mean, that was a real kind of Shikara style promotion back in the day, wasn't it? I mean, did it surprise you how?
It took some inspiration from Chikara, and there was lots of other little promotions like DDT that I was into, and those kind of really out there comic booky style. You know, I wanted to do. You can see from my surroundings, my t-shirt, I'm a massive geek, and so I wanted to do something with that, and that's how Kapow happened. And Kapow was still kind of going strong without me, and in a different way. Will Armstrong, who was my partner in crime back then, he's now in charge of it all with Chris Kay, who runs the SWF promotion, and they've kind of taken it off in a new way, in a totally different direction. Less so much about the comic booky side of things, as far as I can tell, from what I can see from a distance. But I've always had that kind of creative itch. I always loved the idea of, like, and I'm going to be really brutally honest. I think this all started with my obsession with GM mode on the old SmackDown versus Raw games. And I've always been a bit of a fantasy booker. I loved putting together, you know, this is my dream card, and these are the top feuds, and and to do that with real humans, and create something that was creatively satisfying, was great fun. But with anything like that, there's also the pressure of you want it to be successful. You need, you know, there's the heart-wrenching moments of going to the boys and saying, unfortunately, guys, the house isn't great. And those moments really kind of knocked me a lot. I didn't, when we were hot and it was good, everything was great. But those moments where it wasn't so hot, and we had to take the loss, it wasn't. I took that personally. Those moments always affected me to a greater level than say, I think, to a greater level than Will. And so there was a moment where my son was on the way. I was expecting. I was training to do the teaching. I was actually in the midst of what's called a SCIT, a school-centered initial teacher training program. And I was running Kapow with Will still at the time, and something had to give. And I ended up saying to Will, like, I just can't do this. Like, I can't focus on training to be a teacher, preparing for my son's arrival, and being a co-promoter of a promotion. It just wasn't viable anymore, sustainable for me. So I had to give it up. There's parts of that story that I can't talk about because there's too much murky water that under the bridge, that I haven't spoken to Will personally in a long time. It ended amicably originally, and it's devolved into something less than amicable now. And so I don't want to be that person that talks about it in public when the other person can't give their side of the story as well. I've made my feelings clear to a few people, but it is what it is. They've gone off in their own direction. And then once my son was a bit older and I'd finished the teacher training, I was like, I'm kind of feeling that promoter's itch again. Like, I want to do something. And Hex Pro came about from, I had a little bit of money saved up, and I just started kind of looking on the buy and sell sites, like any wrestling rings about. And all of a sudden this 6-sided ring came up, and I was like, oh, okay. And then the creative juices started flowing, and I was like, right, all right, okay. I bought the ring. I went to speak to my head teacher where I am working currently, who was massively supportive, said, like, yep, you can have some storage space on site. You can use the hall for your shows. I said, like, I want to do it as a fundraiser, not interested in making any money off of this. It's not a business. It's just the school had done a lot for me personally and supported me in a lot of different ways, especially during the COVID era, which was a huge blow to all of us in that profession, and we found that incredibly difficult. But they were very supportive, and I wanted to sort of say thank you in a way. And I've always wanted to merge my two worlds together. I've always wanted to bring wrestling into teaching and do something like that. So this was like a stepping stone into doing that. I said, look, let me run some shows. If I make some money, I'll put it towards the school to replace, some IT equipment. We had some laptops that were needed repairing, that sort of thing. And so we did, and they were massively successful. And in terms of, we only had a small capacity, so it was easy to fill. And a lot of the kids that were in my class that were like, oh, my teacher, Mr. Wrestles, he's a wrestler. I've got to go and see him. And so there was a fresh audience, and every academic year, there's always that kind of like new wave of kids that are like, oh, I can't believe it. Let's go and watch the wrestling. So it was just an ideal scenario, and very low pressure for me. It kind of made it so that I didn't have to sweat too much about, tickets and putting bums in seats and stuff. And I had made some connections with a lot of different talent through UPW, but they were students of the Rev Pro Academy down the road, guys like Robbie Lias, Dan McGee, Joshua James, who were phenomenal talents. So I was able to take some of the old Kapow lot that were loyal to me and some of the new guys and create matchups that had never been seen before. And that was what got my creative juices flowing. It's been going really well. And we're now at the point where, in my mind, I'm treating it almost like seasons. So we're coming to the end of season 1, and we've got something big in the pipeline for April, which again I can't say too much about, but there's something. Look, we're going. Let me put it this way: we're going outside of Denmead. We're going outside of my school. We're going just down the road to a much bigger venue, and I want it to be the biggest Hex show that we've done up to this point, biggest capacity, biggest matches, and we've been building this storyline where there will be 6 key holders, And when the 6 key holders are crowned, they can unlock the case, and then there will be a 6-corner match for the contents of the case. And the contents of the case I can unveil to you, and this is probably hot off the press, like never been officially said, but it is the Hex Pro title. We've gone and got a custom made Hex Pro title. It's on the way. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. And then what we'll do is, once we've crowned the champion, we're going to have a little bit of a breather, probably about 5-6 months, and then we're going to come back with season 2. So yeah, lots of plans in mind.
So when is the date of that April season finale?
Well, I can unveil that it will be Saturday, April the 8th. I can't tell you any more because until the ink is dry on a few things, I'm going to kind of play it close to my chest a little bit and make sure that everything's above board and legal before I go and say anything. But we are very close to being ready to announce that. We've got February the 18th, which is the end of the half term. We've got one more show at Denmead to kind of get through before we can start really ramping up the plans for April. But yeah, as I said, you can tell I'm excited about it, and it's been a fun process.
This is the Karl I remember from back in the day. This is Karl, who is pumped up, ready to go, who, you know, walking into the car park in Waterlooville, ready for a kapow show, could be seen sweating and stressing, getting ready behind the scenes. But the minute that curtain popped, came out and just took it by storm. I can't wait. I mean, we'll happily promote this for you on the show all the way from now, right the way through until match day, because it's going to be a great event. Check out Hex Pro.
I like that concept for that sort of season 1 finale, if you will. I love the idea with the keys and that the crown chat. That's different. I like that.
It was something. Oh, go on.
No, go on. Carry on.
I was going to say, it's just something like I've matured slightly in terms of I think when you're young and you're kind of fairly inexperienced, you think that indie wrestling has to be like WWE TV, and so you kind of think, oh, you know, storylines and but then you realize that actually live crowds don't necessarily follow you from show to show, so it's hard to keep that kind of level of continuity going. So it needs to be something that is simple to follow, that has got a thread of continuity, but that you can retell that story on a one-night basis. And again, I've been very fortunate. There have been a fair few repeat visitors to my shows who have seen that story progress since day one. And we're also trying to build the YouTube channel. I've been editing the episodes, and you know, I've cut them almost like proper little mini wrestling episodes with backstage shenanigans and promos and everything as well. So if anyone was interested, or even if they got into Hex Pro as a result of this big April show, my idea being that they can go back and rewatch the history that brings them up to this point. So yeah, I've been toying with that idea of, you know, little simple things that we can just narratively thread things together whilst also presenting high quality one night experiences. So yeah, that's a difficult balancing act, but that's where my creative process has matured slightly from before, where I was like, you know, big storylines, big angles, and we'll just hope that everyone follows it.
And we'll throw everything bar the kitchen sink at it just to say it's there. Do you know, there was a comment you made earlier, Karl, which really tickled me. Was, you know, I was just having a look on the sales site, see if I could get a wrestling ring. Most people look on the sales site to see if they could get an Xbox. You know, you look to see if you can get a 6-sided square circle. You know,
well, honestly, it's serendipity, isn't it? Because it's one of those things. I use the buy and sell sites a lot for my vast collection of geekery in here, and so I had a little bit of money, and I just had that thought of, I kind of want to get into promoting again. I don't want to deal with renting rings, and you know, I've seen it too often. You know, there's lots of very good, trustworthy ring rental companies out there, but there are others that you know, you get let down on the day, the van breaks down, whatever it is. I didn't want to deal with any of that stress. I wanted it to be like, no, I'm going to invest in something that's mine. I always lamented the fact that when Kapow started, we had 2 rings, and then and then we sold one, and then we ended up with a new one. And I missed the fact that I used to own my own stuff. So I was just looking, and it just popped up, and it was the right price point. I had been talking to another fella who bought a ring off of Rishi, and that sort of conversation fell through. So I was like, well, I'll just check the buy and sell sites, and there it was, a 6-sided ring. And it's not like any ring that I've ever seen ever before. It's like, I don't know who built it, and I don't want to offend anyone if they're listening and they know, oh, that's my ring. But it's not built like someone who's built wrestling rings before. It's like someone had welding experience and went, I reckon I could do this. And they put this ring together. I have spent so much time trying to bodge it to be better than it was when I first received it. I don't know if you know much about rings, and I don't think I'm breaking kayfabe too much to say that there is a big suspension spring in most of the sprung rings. You either have flexi beam rings where the beams bend a little bit, or you have the sprung. Well, this one had a spring, but this ring had been in situ at a gym for what I can assume was probably years, because again, this was probably up pre-COVID. And over time, I think the spring had become compressed to the point where there was no bounce. It was like bang, concrete. It was horrible. So I went and bought new springs and tried to do it up, and now it's at a point where it's at a good level. We dressed it up with our purple and black ring aprons. It looks quite smart. So yeah, and I went and built an entranceway. I don't know if you've seen anything online, but I went and built a wooden entrance like this in a hexagon shape, and we put some lights on, and I bought some drapes to black out the material, black out the walls, and from certain angles it looks really, really nice. And my goal is to hopefully build on that and just keep adding to the production value and make it look better and better.
It's great seeing it back. I mean, I've watched a bit of Hex Pro on YouTube, some of the videos that have been shared and the highlights, and it is fantastic. Of course, you've got a fairly good MC there, friend of the show.
Yeah, Dan's great. And again, Dan's been really supportive. He does a lot more behind the scenes for Hex Pro than I think he would care to admit, because he can see me on the day. And you've been at shows that you just said, I'm sweating and I'm pacing the floors and whatever. And then it's like, once I see people in the seats and I know the show's running, I chill right out. But in those moments before the doors open, when there's music checks to do and the cameras aren't working and this isn't quite right, and I'll be running around and my heart will be like fluttering like a blooming hummingbird. But once it all happens, I chill right out. And Dan is brilliant at kind of going, what do you need, boss? And kind of going, all right, do you want me to sort this out? Just, is this been done? He's brilliant at that. So yeah, and he's a very calming presence at shows. And it is good to have a decent MC.
The same Dan, a calming presence, really? I know. He was back in the day.
Certainly my experience.
Yeah. I mean, it was like that with UPW, though, because I was a part of UPW when it first started, and did about 4 years with them as commentator and bit of MC and general manager and all that type of thing. And it is the same. It's that pressure, isn't it? Stefan's in the business. Stefan's a manager. He's a commentator for UKPW as well. But I think unless you're in the business, or you're backstage and you're getting the shows ready and stuff like that, it's very hard to kind of perpendiculate what it's like to anybody else, or to kind of explain it for anyone to understand.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because for example, with me, like with UKPW and commentary, I can now just turn up at shows and get myself ready, because everyone else, the promoter, everyone else that's working behind the scenes, they're running around getting everything else done. They're getting the music set up, they're getting the sound system set up, they're getting the lighting set up, and as Karl will know, so it's it's at a point now where you just turn up, what you got to do. I make sure the equipment's set up for the commentary, test it, sit down, get ready to go, and that's it. It's just, you don't even have to check, and it's a quick hello, how you doing, blah blah blah, and the pleasantries are usually saved till after the show, if anything, because everyone's just flat out. So yeah, it's just
it's different. It's one thing of like being a director and an actor is very, very difficult, I can imagine, because I find that my match performances always suffer if I'm the one behind the scenes running things, because it's almost, and it shouldn't be, but it almost is the last thing on the list, isn't it? Like, well, and I normally make sure that I've booked the card so that I've got time to come backstage and get myself dressed and chat to the boys and whatever. But sometimes it's not like that, and it's just a rush, you know. And the thing that always suffers is your match performance. And obviously, there's a different kind of pressure at my shows, because a lot of the audience, I'd say a good 50% of the audience, are children that I interact with on a daily basis, who are expecting, you know, Mr. Wrestle to beat someone up and do really well. And yeah, so, and again, that creates its own creative challenges, because, you know, ultimately you can't win all your matches all the time. But how do you do so in such a way that I won't go in on Monday and get absolutely roasted by about 50 kids telling me, oh, you got beat by so and so. So yeah, there's a lot of extra layers to Hexpro, and I do relish now as well the like you say, the UPW ones where you turn up and everything's handled. I don't have to touch anything except my match, and that's been a blessing, because I think some of my best work has been at Big League and UPW over the last few years, and that is because I'm able to just turn up and focus on just my work.
I would agree with that. I mean, I saw you against Eddie Ryan recently at the last show, and it was fantastic. You know, this whole keyboard warrior gimmick that you've got coming out with that big kick-ass keyboard that's amazing, the keyboard sword. You know, it's a totally different Karl out there, but it's one that fits you so well. And to hang with someone like Eddie Ryan as well, and to get a 5-star.
Eddie's a phenomenal talent, and the keyboard warrior thing was so, it was like a completely organic thing that happened completely by accident. I went to one of the guys that was handling creative at Big League, Lewis Roster.
Yep.
And I said, look, I feel like my niche, if I'm going to bring something to the table that you are going to be able to push, is that I could be, I don't want to say Mick Foley, but I'll be that kind of attitude era hardcore guy who will put his body on the line and do some cool stuff for you. And he was like, I love that, we'll run with that. And so he put me in a couple of hardcore matches, and I wasn't even the one to bring the keyboards out. A guy, Lion Kid, hit me with the keyboard, and someone said, oh, that was such a cool visual, you know, the keys shattered and spread out everywhere, and it was a really cool visual, you know, we want to see more of that. And then I did it again and again and again and again, and then I thought, right, arts and crafts time, I'm going to get some keyboards, I'm going to make the keyboard buster sword, and I made myself some like football straps, like a LOD version, but with keys and stuff all stuck over it, and put some LED lights on it. And I was trying to like create a different, like you said, a different version of myself that was marketable and unique. Because to be honest as well, there was an element of, I came in and everyone was doing the whole budget Owens, you know, Poundland Owens, because I had the big baggy shorts and the beard, and I had a bit of a belly, and I looked a lot like Kevin Owens. I was doing moonsaults and stuff like Kevin Owens. And so the comparison was easy to make. And I was like, well, what can I do to skew that slightly? And as I said, it was all very organic and natural, and it just kind of fit, and I love it. And yeah, I was aware as well at the time that there's the other lad doing the keyboard warrior down in Rev Pro, Curtis Chapman, and I reached out to him and I said, oh, I'm not ripping you off. It happened completely by accident. I didn't realize you were doing the same thing at the same time. And he was totally like professional, cool about it. We run in different circles, so it really wasn't a problem. But yeah, but now I've started to tone down the keyboard warrior side of things, because they've brought in Mad Dog Beards, my tag team with Mad Dog as the Beards. And so we're going to go more kind of down the line of the Steiner brothers. Like he's got his motorbike jacket, and I'll keep the shoulder pads, but maybe not bring the sword, that sort of thing, you know, and kind of be like, you know, the big bombastic smash mouth tag team that we've kind of carved our niche as. And I love tagging with Mad Dog. Like you mentioned Beerfield Violence, and don't get me wrong, that was a great time in my life. And you know, Bill was a good friend and a good partner, but I started to not feel quite very I wasn't very satiated by the matches that I was having. I felt like it became repetitive, and I wasn't putting on the performances that I would have liked, and it got stale for me.
Yeah.
And obviously, eventually, things kind of disbanded the way they did anyway. And I was like, no, I'm done with tags. I don't want to do tags anymore. And I had a long run where I was just on my own. And then I think it might have been Chris Kay put Sam and I in as a tag team on one of his SWF shows. And it was such good fun. And I suddenly had a rapport with Mad Dog, and I thought, oh, this has got some legs. And then it was a young lad that we were training with at the time called Nick, played me the Psycho Stick song "Obey the Beards," and I think I originally kind of scoffed at it and went, that's a joke, like whatever. And I listened to it again at home, and I was like, oh no, okay, there is something here. And you know, I wouldn't tag with anyone else. So I think, you know, I'll do some singles, I'll do some tags, but it will be with Mad Dog, and that's it. And then I'll retire, and that will be the end of it. You
retire happy, and hopefully retire as a world tag team champion at some point. You know, I can't wait to see you and Mad Dog against Scott and Joe.
Well, yeah, we've done that match, but not for the belts.
Well, it needs to be for the belts, you know.
Yeah, and this is it. You know, that I've kind of said, like, I've got my, you know, like Cody Rhodes did his list of when he was on the Indies. I've got my kind of winding down list of, like, not things that I want to do that are new, but like old achievements that I'd like to revisit, old feuds that I'd like to do one more match with, and things like winning a tag belt with Mad Dog. We've won a couple, but I'd like to have one more somewhere else with Mad Dog, and just so that I can say, you know, we had a nice run. I really want to finish my ongoing saga with Steve Love, or Steve Luther, who you'll remember, like we were feuding when he was League of Ordinary Gentlemen and I was someone else entirely. And that's been going on probably about as long as I've been in the business, probably about 20 years. Like, people won't remember that, but that's personal for me. So I want to finish that thing with Steve. I'd love to work with guys like McCluskey, Eddie Ryan again, you know, guys like Robbie and Dan and Joshua James, those kind of guys. Like, I want to have one more mix up with everyone and then walk away happy.
I must admit, there's one match that I want to see you in, and that's you against Ollie. Yeah, you against Ollie Burns.
Yeah, Priscilla. Yeah,
you know, Priscilla, because I think you have a lot to play in Ollie's success that he's had now up in PCW and in WAW, because that Priscilla character, if you haven't seen it, really made its name on Kapow, and you gave him the platform to go out. And Ollie's always a tremendous worker anyway. He was back in the FWA days. And it's brilliant to see him getting the success. So to see you two back in the ring again one more time.
Oh,
down in the Southwest.
With the presentation that Priscilla has now, and the presentation that I have now, just for the entrances alone,
exactly,
it would be worth seeing, and it would top anything that we've done prior. I always loved working with Priscilla. I had some great matches at Kapow with Priscilla and at KWE. One of my favorite matches of all time was against Priscilla at KWE for one of their winter shows. And funnily enough, I put out on social media, yeah, I'd like to do something. And he reached out immediately and said, yeah, come on, let's find somewhere to do this. It would be tremendous. And I agree. Definitely one of the ones that I said, like, I won't retire until I at least have those matches, and he's one of them.
Mark Fry, if you're listening, book it. Pro Wrestle Dorset just commented on YouTube saying Karl Atlas is a true gentleman, both in and outside of the ring. And more news on Pro Wrestle Dorset soon here on the Squared Circle. That's all.
I personally, I want to throw a name in there. I want to see you against someone like Bullet.
Yeah, I mean, again, tremendous worker. Like, Bullet's someone that I admire hugely, and again, a really sound guy. I've had the pleasure of working with Bullet on some Premiere shows, which, again, you know, Premiere being kind of the last bastion of true old school British wrestling. They still do rounds for all their matches, etc. But they don't publicize themselves very well on social media, and they've never really been about that. So I've had those matches, but nobody outside of that particular night has seen them. But yeah, Bullet would be someone like on a bigger stage, on a bigger platform, that I think we'd tear the house down.
I think so. I think so. I'm not being biased. The fact that Bullet's EWE World Champion currently, and I know him quite well. But that is, I just know that is a match I would love to see. That I agree with you. I think you would absolutely tear the house down. We got a question in our chat. Ollie Peters wants to know, where did Karl get that T-shirt?
I can actually recall this one. I don't often recall where I get my T-shirts. This was from a comic convention that frequently takes place down in Totton. It's just the other side of Southampton, for those of you that aren't aware. And they do these kind of like toy fair comic convention things. They're not huge deals, but I take my son down there. It's good fun. And someone just had a whole rack of like T-shirts, and I think he was selling them for like £1. So I was like, yes, please. Yeah, like getting rid of them. So I was like, I grabbed a few. Yeah, I love this T-shirt. It's one of my favorites.
I think I said to you before we went on air, that is a cracking looking T-shirt. So one thing that we got, I mean, just before we're going to move on to the next segment in a second, because we've been going for about 40 minutes. And to be honest, Karl, I think I could chat to you for ages because we got a lot to catch up on. The set, your man room, your man cave. I mean, talk us through it. You have got some massive stuff there, haven't you?
So a lot of this, like I said, like it is buy and sell. It's car boot sale. It's secondhand. I surround myself. I think I surround myself with nostalgia because it genuinely reminds me of a simpler time in my life. And it's just, I don't play with it. I just set it all up, and it's nice to come and sit in an environment that's colourful and bright and cheerful and has all this stuff in it. I don't know if I can move the camera a little bit. I'll give you a kind of a whistle stop tour. So a lot of like, you won't be able to see the detail in it, but there's a lot of glass cabinets full of old stuff. In particular, Marvel Toy Biz stuff from when I was a kid. Like, this is the stuff that made my childhood. So when I had a bit of disposable cash, and I was like, yes, let's redo that. There's Ninja Turtles over there. There's Batman stuff over here. There's I've gotten into board games quite a lot recently, so I've got a board game section up here. I've recently bought myself a 3D printer as well, so I can make my own toys. So yeah, that's a whole new level of geekiness. But during lockdown, this place was kind of my savior because there wasn't I wasn't allowed to go into work because I'm asthmatic, and that we didn't know at the beginning of COVID as much as we do now, and we didn't know the dangers, and so the risk assessment basically said, nope, stay at home. So I sunk myself into arts and crafts because, again, I'm a creative guy, and all of a sudden wrestling was ripped away from me, my work was ripped away from me. Basically, I was stay-at-home dad, and don't get me wrong, during a period of my son's development where to have that time with him was a gift. Like, I will never, that I would have never have had that time otherwise. So I do think of that as a blessing. But like I got into like making my own lightsabers and stuff. I know some of your audience are probably going, "Oh my god!" But that was what kept me going. And this room and just kind of doing it up. So yeah, I do love this little room.
That's fantastic.
About me is I love nostalgia. So anything that reminds me of my childhood, the stuff I used to be into, for whether it be TV shows, movies, the action figures we used to play with back in the day. I mean, I don't have much of a collection of it. I mean, I have like this, for example, like a complete box of unopened Ninja Turtles 1990 movie cards, all complete, mint, unopened. So I have certain things laying around, but not to that extent, obviously.
My partner, my long-suffering partner, bless her heart, she allows this little corner of the house, and that's mine. And I kind of say to her, like, in a way, this is the kids. When I'm gone, they can sell this. This is their inheritance. Because there's probably a few items in here that might be able to fund a small car when they're a bit older. But I've slowed down because I've actually run out of room. I can't put any more in here.
Essentially, that is a very good point you make, because a lot of stuff, some people don't understand the value of a lot of the stuff we grew up with that from our childhood. They don't understand the values of it. They just think, oh, you're an adult, you're not a child anymore. Why do that? Well, actually, if you think about it, it's an inheritance. And quite frankly, if I need money on like I find myself in a really bad situation financially, I've got a potential way of saving myself. So, this is the thing, it's not to be laughed at.
No. I mean, we're not the minority anymore, are we? The geek shall inherit the earth.
Thanks to the Big Bang Theory. That's all I say. Thank you, Sheldon Cooper.
Absolutely.
Right, Karl. It's. I mean, having a catch up with you and having a chat has been brilliant. And I don't know how it's taken us 10 years to have another catch up again. But please don't do it for another 10.
No.
You're going to stick around for a little bit, aren't you? Because we're going to get a talking point in just a second, and then when we come back, we're going to do our topic of the week, which is all about sponsored matches. I believe.
I'm happy to stick around, man. But by all means, I'll take the break and I'll nip off and I'll come back. But yeah, thank you very much. It's been great. And in the future as well, I know we'll probably say this later, but by all means, get me back on. It's always great to catch up. And I like to keep you guys in the loop of what's going on down at Hex Pro as well. So
please. We'd love to. I mean, it's great looking promotion and can't wait until your next show and keep it up.
Thanks, guys.
Right, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, what are we doing next, Stefan? Are we doing Talking Point or are we doing Newsline?
It'll be Newsline.
It'll be Newsline. We're going to get a break. We're going to come back with Newsline. We'll see you on the other side. Karl, see you in a second, mate. Well, that was a bit jazzy, wasn't it? The new intro for the Newsline.
Very jazzy. Oh, and Andy's been putting the work in there.
I've got another one to do yet. You wait. Big thanks to Karl there for joining us for the last 45 minutes, talking all about his career. I had loved that chat. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed that.
It'll be good. It'll be nice when he does eventually step away from in-ring competition. It'd be nice to get him on to really talk about everything he's done throughout his career.
Yeah.
So, let us know if you want to hear more from Karl, because that'd be fantastic to get him back on. Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that we didn't do at the beginning of the show was throw out the social. So if you want to get in contact with us, you absolutely can do. WhatsApp on 077 243 12752. That's 077 243 12752. You can tweet us and you can watch us live at Wrestling TSC, and you can Instagram us at TSC Wrestling Podcast, or you can visit the Facebook page by searching for the Squared Circle Wrestling Podcast, and you can watch us live on that right now, and you can comment, and your comments will appear on screen, or you can join us on YouTube at TSC at Wrestling Podcast. There we go.
Yes. So, but yeah, don't forget we've got that WhatsApp. That's a great way of getting in contact with us, because you can get your very own a little bit of the bubbly, because we can't do the sound effect, can we? So anyway. So, yes, it's Newsline. Now, first of all, first bit of news we got for you is Brock Lesnar seems to have a little bit of backstage heat. Now, he apparently went off script following his elimination from the 30-man Royal Rumble match last Saturday. It's believed that Lesnar was indeed meant to lose his temper and enter a moment of rage at ringside. However, some of his actions were unexpected, which has led to this heat. Lesnar was not meant to throw part of the announce table into the ring, but it was his assault on referee Eddie Orengo that is said to be the main issue. Lesnar grabbed Orengo and forced him over the barricade during his moment of rage. There have been reports that this incident led to Eddie Orengo suffering a foot injury, yet this has not yet been confirmed at this time. Orengo was the official that was set to raise Cody Rhodes' hand in victory at the conclusion of the men's Rumble match, but that had to be changed due to Lesnar's attack.
So Brock went a little bit nuts at the Royal Rumble. Doesn't really surprise me there.
Doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Other news is Booker T has announced a Reality of Wrestling working relationship with WWE. He made the announcement this past Saturday that they will begin working the working relationship with NXT. Their relationship is set to begin this coming weekend, and this will see current NXT member Ivy Nile making her indie debut and her Reality of Wrestling debut at their February 11th show in Texas City.
Now, apparently, though, just to kind of throw that one into you, I don't know what you've heard about this, it's only meant to be a one-shot. So, Michaels has said it's a one-shot deal.
Maybe it is, but I've heard reports saying this is going to be a continuing one, where we might see various faces. We'll find out in due course. But Reality of Wrestling have said the following. Reality of Wrestling is taking the roster to the next level. We are proud to announce that Reality of Wrestling will be working with NXT to bring our fans incredible matchups that they can't see anywhere else. Don't miss the chance to see NXT Superstar and NBC's Titans against first female champion Ivy Nile in action on Saturday, February 11th in Texas City at the World Gym Arena. Booker T, who is also a color commentator for NXT brand, said, and one of his students, Roxanne Perez, who is currently the NXT Women's Champion, posted on social media that he is excited to merge my NXT favorites with the roster of my students at Reality of Wrestling. So, well, we'll see how that one pans out, if that ends up being more than a one-shot deal. Judging by what they said in the statement, it sounds like it's more than a one-shot, but we'll see.
It sounds like it, but...
Yeah,
I was just going to say, it sounds like it, but who knows? It could be a bit of a shucky ducky quack quack. I buggered that up really badly. Shucky ducky quack quack.
Shucky ducky quack quack. There's been a health update regarding Kyle O'Reilly. All Elite Wrestling star Adam Cole has provided an update on his friend Kyle O'Reilly's health. Cole, who is a long-time friend of Kyle O'Reilly, said that O'Reilly is doing well as he provided an update during an appearance on Wrestling Observer Radio. Cole said, I talk to him every day. He's doing good. He's doing really well. He's in a situation now where he's working so hard to make sure that he gets healthy as soon as he possibly can, but at the same time making sure that he doesn't rush back. Kyle was really banged up and it got to a point where he kind of couldn't take it anymore. I'm so glad that he got fixed and got healthy and is recovering day by day. Cole, who is the longest reigning NXT champion, has only recently himself returned from a lengthy spell out following concussion issues. He continued to say early on in the process, I think he was so discouraged because there was so little that he was able to do. But now as time goes on, he's starting to be able to do more and more in therapy and rehab. You see the excitement and wheels turning on him already, thinking about how he can't wait to get back. He's in good spirits and has a lot of people around him that love him a lot. Kyle O'Reilly last competed for AEW on 8th of June 2022 episode of Dynamite, where he came up short against Jon Moxley in a match to crown a new number one contender that had just been vacated by CM Punk. So Kyle O'Reilly, I did actually see an updated video yesterday of Kyle O'Reilly with this device around his neck and him moving back. It was attached. So I'm suggesting that's to build up resistance in his neck.
Yeah, I mean, Carl, from a Carl Atlas is back from a wrestling perspective. How difficult is it to come back into the ring from a serious injury? I mean, what does it take going through your mind?
I mean, I've been very fortunate not to have what I would just call a serious injury. Like, I've never broken anything major. But even, you know, my shoulder and my ribs and things like that. I mean, let's focus on just the rib injury. I did a match, a very, very, what I would call very basic, easy match over the Christmas period. And I was second guessing every bump. And I don't consider myself to be a bump shy person, but I was awkwardly landing to try and save that area. And you do find that you're just off a beat, and if I'm not in the flow of the moment, it takes me out of it, and you just feel everything so much more, and you just second guess yourself, and everything feels a bit clunky. So yeah, I can only imagine, a serious injury coming back. You could, I'm sure it's like getting on a bike, but that first initial couple of pedals is going to take a moment for you to go, oh, okay, yeah, I remember what to do.
Because it sounds like, from what you were saying in that news report there, that's quite a rough neck injury if he's got some sort of device going around the neck to kind of to stabilize him. I mean, he's not known for being calm in the ring, though, is he? He's known for the martial arts, for the kicks, for a bit of the high flying as well. And when you pair him up with Adam Cole, I mean, that's potentially career ending. So it's going to be interesting to see if he comes back, and if he does come back, in how that's going to affect his in-ring style.
Yeah, I would have thought so. The next bit of news, surprise, surprise, Seth Rollins is not a fan of Logan Paul. Is anyone? That's a legit question. Logan Paul eliminated Seth Rollins from this year's 30-man Royal Rumble match. Rollins, who won the Rumble himself back in 2019, knows what it's like to win one of the toughest matches in WWE. For Logan Paul, it was his very first Rumble appearance and only his fourth match in WWE. On January 30th edition of Monday Night Raw, Rollins just walked away when asked about Logan Paul eliminating him. However, during a live chat with fans on Instagram, Rollins was more vocal and did not hold back with his opinion on Logan Paul. Rollins stated, "All right, look, I was going to avoid this topic, but since I've seen a few of you guys asking so far about Logan Paul, I don't know. I don't know about Logan Paul. All I know is that I don't really like Logan Paul. I'll just say it. a lot of us don't really like Logan Paul. We don't. I don't like Logan Paul. I don't really need him in my locker room, in my space. Great, the guy is ultra talented as far as his athletic ability is concerned. He snuck up on me at the Rumble and dumped me. Fine, whatever. I took my eyes off the ball, and that one's on me. But don't go bragging about it like you did something otherworldly. It's probably the coolest thing Logan's ever going to do in his life. I just advise him to stay in his lane. He's had, 3 or 4 matches? Again, athletic freak, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, he's just not a wrestler. Rollins then continued claiming Logan Paul is only interested in becoming more famous rather than actually be a wrestler. Rollins continued, he doesn't want to be a wrestler. He just wants to be famous. He doesn't care about the industry. He's not a wrestler. It's best for him to just stay in his lane, whatever his lane is. I don't know, buying counterfeit Pokemon cards. If that's your lane, stay in that lane. Don't come knocking on my door because I'll knock you out. You don't have your brother for backup because he's just about to get cooked by this dude coming up in a couple of weeks. He's not going to be around. At some point, we're going to have to come face to face. I just really don't think he wants none, as they say, I guess. That's all I'm going to say about Logan Paul, as they call him. Come in, do your thing, get your little claps and that. Have everybody hold your hand, great. But don't be bragging about throwing me out of the Rumble. That's just kind of calling me a clown. Look at this guy, that's all. It's clear that they may be just laying the foundations for a Mania match this year between the two of them.
Yep. Night 1 or night 2?
I love how Rollins' consistency. It was about a week ago he called out CM Punk, told CM Punk to stay away. He's a cancer and went completely off on Punk. And now this week he's going off on Logan Paul. Gotta love Rollins.
Rollins is the MVP at the moment at WWE. I think you can't say anything against that. What I'm intrigued to know, though, is, Karl, your T-shirt is Autobots versus Decepticons. Are you for Prime or are you against Prime?
Right. So I don't know a lot about Logan Paul before wrestling. I'm aware of his existence. I know that he was a YouTube star, etc. But I don't know a lot about what he did and why people dislike him so much. I mean, I know a little bit about the controversy, etc. If you crystallize it and you look at just his performances in the WWE, he's a phenomenal talent and a huge coup for WWE. Like, he brings in a lot of outside audience puts eyes on the product. It totally makes sense for me. I have enjoyed his stuff, and they're definitely laying the foundation for a match. But to say he doesn't care about the business, we've had outside stars come in and do matches before who have clearly not trained to the degree that Logan Paul has. So to say that he doesn't care, I think is probably not true. I think he came in with no, I'm going to be different. I'm gonna make sure that I can actually work, and his ring presence is beyond his experience. It's incredible. I am fascinated by him when he's on screen. So I think the future's bright, and I like the idea of a kind of they're going the way with Brock Lesnar here, aren't they? Where they've got those characters that just appear for a little brief moment, they don't overstay their welcome, and they're gone again. And so when they come back, you're excited to see them. And I if they're going to go down the line of making him a villain as well, I think the sky's the limit for the guy, really.
I mean, you're right, and you've only got to look at the last 2 appearances that he's had. The one being at Crown Jewel against Roman Reigns, where he literally hung with Reigns for that entire world title match, and the second one just last Saturday at the Rumble with Ricochet. I mean, the spot just on its own with Ricochet, where they went across the ring, and we talked about it last week on the show, that on its own shows commitment to the cause, as far as I'm concerned. And I think Logan Paul is a great asset.
Guys who are like, oh, I'm only in it for an extra bit of fame, don't take bumps like that.
Absolutely not. Couldn't agree more. Yeah,
well, I appreciate the fact that he doesn't half-arse it. He clearly has put a lot of work into it. I mean, that's a positive when you've got probably the last 3 outsiders that have come in and impressed people. Bad Bunny for number 1, impressed everybody. Pat McAfee when he did his stint in NXT with Adam Cole and the whole War Games thing. Again, fantastic. And now Logan Paul, the way he's hung with Roman Reigns. I mean, I see Logan Paul when he teamed up with The Miz at WrestleMania last year. It was an okay performance. It was nothing special to write home about. But then he comes back and he has this thing with Roman Reigns, and you think, wow, the guy's been working behind the scenes. You can't complain about outsiders if they're willing to put the work in. So it's.
I mean, even if you talk about Stephen Amell, when he was doing the Arrow and the Stardust thing, and then eventually had a match in AEW as well. Very, very passable efforts. But he's doing a TV show called Heels, which is all about wrestlers, and he still does not have the natural presence that a Logan Paul has. No. Stephen Amell should be better than Logan Paul, and in my opinion, isn't.
In fairness, though, we shouldn't be having a conversation saying how good a worker Logan Paul is, because by all rights and means of what we've talked about, he shouldn't be as good as what he is. But if you go back to the Mania match that Stefan referred to earlier on, and that gap, and then what he did at Crown Jewel, when he did at SummerSlam, he had the gap. He did the match at SummerSlam, he had the gap. Then it was Crown Jewel, had the gap, come back into the Royal Rumble. Consistently, every time he's come back, he has got better. And he's put in that work in. And when you consider as well the injuries that he had coming out of Crown Jewel, there was no way he should have been back for the Royal Rumble. I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do with him at WrestleMania. I'm going to intrigued to see what the build is going to be like between now and WrestleMania 39. Equally, I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do with someone like Pat McAfee as well, who's no longer obviously on commentary at the moment. He's got to be in a match at some point. And it's quite intriguing to see where these guest spots and these guest stars are going to appear on the main card. And is that linked to the potential sale of WWE and the new creative era of Triple H?
It's potential, yeah. Could
be. I mean, Logan Paul is clearly being handled very, very carefully by the right people. They show it in some of the vignettes, don't they, that he's being trained with Shawn Michaels and people like that. And I think the match consistency has been good, because if we're breaking it down, he's probably training for that specific match for the months in the lead up to it, and he's being put against guys that will make him look like $1 million. And Seth Rollins is the next evolution in that, I think, because Seth has got, he's a solid hand. He's built himself up as being someone that can be trusted to work with anyone. And I would genuinely be excited to watch that match,
Well, potentially we're going to be seeing it at WrestleMania 39, so not too long to wait until you see that card.
Final bit of news before we move on to our debate. Nick Khan has said that Vince McMahon will step down. So executive chairman, Vince McMahon is open to stepping away from the company if it's the right deal, according to CEO Nick Khan. McMahon's potential future involvement in WWE has become an early sticking point in preliminary talks with various buyers, according to people familiar with the matter, who asked not to be named because the discussions are private. Anyway, Vince McMahon is WWE's controlling shareholder. He developed the creative storylines for the Professional Wrestling League for decades, often taking part in narratives himself. Earlier this year, he stepped down as head of creative, handing the reins to his son-in-law, former WWE superstar Paul Triple H Levesque. Khan took over as sole CEO in January when Levesque's wife and Vince McMahon's daughter Stephanie stepped down as co-CEO. Nick Khan has said in an interview last Friday with CNBC, Vince has declared to the board that he's 100% open to transactions where he's not included in the company moving forward. So, as we know, McMahon stepped away from his CEO role in June amid accusations of sexual misconduct from former female employees. A month later, he announced he would retire from the wrestling company he bought from his father over 4 decades ago. Last month, however, Vince returned to the board to be directly involved in sale negotiations with potential buyers. WWE has hired financial advisors to proceed with a sale process which Khan predicted would last about 3 months. Khan emphasized WWE would be appealing to a large media company with a streaming platform that can increase subscribers by exclusively owning WWE's monthly live event along with its historical library of past matches. Nick Khan added, "We feel the marketplace is robust for our product. It's in essence its own sports league. Someone can buy it and put it on their platform." Khan also acknowledged it's tough to take control from McMahon, who has owned and run WWE for more than 40 years. Still, he reiterated that McMahon would prioritise shareholder value and step away if it's the right deal, and we will have to take a look at all of the factors that make it the right deal. So, is he though?
Well,
we said this when he retired and stepped away June last year, didn't we?
It's interesting because I watched the interview that you referenced from CNBC. I've seen the interview with Nick Khan, and he seemed to be quite open. What a couple of interesting things that's come out there though is the fact that he is basically saying they are looking to sell it to a streaming giant. So that really kind of goes with what we already know. So that puts Disney Fox, the House of Mouse in the buyer's position, and Comcast with NBC Universal. And with Peacock. The question, though, is would Vince actually step down? And we're not in that position to say yay or nay, but you've got to think with another lawsuit being filed from the directors to Vince McMahon over the way he handled the return, you've got to think that there's going to be a clause in there to state McMahon cannot be a part of that company going forward.
You would think there might be something like that. I mean, ultimately... this is still hot. That all these allegations, all of these lawsuits are still hot on these heels. And as we've touched on many, many times, the guy is of age where he should be retired anyway. I know it's been his joy for the last 40 odd years since he bought it from his father, but he's not indestructible. He's not, inhuman. He's a guy who's getting old. And is of age where he should be spending the rest of his life enjoying the fruits of his labour, the money he's made, and let it, enjoy watching it from afar with the right people around it.
Karl, what's your take on this? I mean, as a promoter, as a performer, as a booker, the whole Vince controversy and the sale of WWE. What's your take?
I mean, if we're talking Disney, he's got to go. Disney will not want any affiliation with any of that whatsoever. And I kind of want Disney to buy it. I might be alone on this, but
no.
From a consumer point of view, Disney have Marvel, Star Wars, Star, all the other stuff, and their own stuff that they're putting out. You add WWE to that. That's a game changer. Like everything on one subscription service, you can put your price up as well. Like I think I'm still paying one of the old introductory prices, and I'm very happy with it. There's something on there for me, my son, everyone in my house. Add wrestling to it, bump the price up to a £10 or £12 a month. I'm still going to pay it because you've got everything I want under one roof, and it would make sense. So yeah, and I'm not going to be fussed about, like you say, Vince can go and live out his remaining years with his lovely pile of money, and it would not affect the business. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, it's almost like the Benoit debate, isn't it? Where people were like, there's always going to be people that say the moment he did what he did, everything he did before it has been completely overshadowed. And then there's going to be people that are like, he did what he did, but what he did before that was pretty goddamn good. So there's going to be that argument with Vince. There's people that are going to try and scrub him off the history books. And then there's people that are going to say, well, hold on, wrestling wouldn't be what it is without him. And that argument will be, forever. And I sit very much kind of on the fence of like, as long as I'm getting my product at a good price and I can watch Star Wars 1 minute, then Marvel the next, and then WWE, I'm happy. I'm a happy t-shirt wearing boy. So, it is what it is. But go on.
What I was going to say, what a perfect Saturday evening, if you're home alone, the wife's gone out with the girls or something, and you sit there, watch the Avengers, go into Endgame, have a little bit of A New Hope, and then finish it off with WrestleMania. I mean, that's not a bad way to spend an evening, is it?
Oh, that's tremendous. And all for, £10 a month.
PWD in the...
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, PWD in the chat room has put Disney is the perfect choice to buy the WWE. I think we all agree on that one.
Yeah.
And I think people would be afraid that a lot of people are posting the memes about how Disney would soften the product. And I don't think they would, because you look at what they've got. They've got their adult portion of their, with Star and things that, they stream Rick and Morty and that kind of stuff. solar opposites is of the same sort of thing. They've got their adult arm of their streaming network service. So I think, the WWE creates so much product that there can be stuff that is tailored for the younger audience and stuff that's tailored for the older audience. I don't think it will make a difference.
Absolutely. I mean, and someone's mocked up the interface of what Disney Plus would look like with that extra tile. And you know what? It looks like it belongs. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I think it'll be a big shock if somebody else swoops in and takes it.
Yeah,
I think it would be huge.
I was just gonna say, throw it out there, slightly off topic. Karl said, "Be a happy t-shirt wearing guy." That's his new gimmick now. His new nickname.
The happy t-shirt wearing guy.
Like these brilliant, like geeky t-shirts, like when you go to the ring. But I was going to say on McMahon, I would have just tried to force McMahon out of WWE and sell the company from the moment he did the stand back performance at the Slammers in the 80s. Like, that would have been enough for me. If they turned around and said, stand up there with Hogan and that and pretend you're playing an instrument, I would have turned around and said, no, that would have been it.
And what Stefan doesn't know is that in a couple of weeks on the Squared Circle, we're going to reenact the whole stand back performance. And we'll see
he's going to have Karl put him through another table for him suggesting it.
And on that note, Karl, been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, my friend. I know you've got to sign off now, but
I have. Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Absolute pleasure having you with us. Drop out your socials and the socials for Hex. How can people get in contact with you and keep up to date with what you and Hex are up to?
With Hex, we've got the Facebook page. I mean, essentially just look for Hex Pro Wrestling on Facebook. It's /Hex Pro Wrestling. We're on the Twitter machine as well. We're on YouTube, Hex Pro Wrestling. Again, we've got episodes on there, and I've got 2 more kind of in the bank ready to drop soon. That's the main ones for Hex Pro. For me personally, Karl Atlas on Facebook mainly. I do have Twitter. I don't dabble in it very much, but Facebook I'm fairly active, so that would be where to find me. But yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Pleasure. We can't wait to have you back on, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
All the best.
Okay, Karl, we're going to let you go. We'll speak to you very soon. Coming up now on the Squared Circle, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, it's going to be Stefan and I talking all things Talking Point. Let's get your interaction in. I've played this before. I'm really interested because he hasn't seen this yet. Look at his face. He's like, what the hell have you done? This is Talking Point. There we go. That is the Talking Point. And we've also got a new overlay in the top right-hand corner, you see. Hey. I've been busy. Now,
you've been busy.
I'm going to be honest. I have got absolutely no idea what this week's debate topic is because I haven't written the show plan this week. So over to you. All I know is it's about sponsored matches.
Yes. Are they worth it? Now, as some people, especially those who tuned into the Royal Rumble, one of the highlights, which wasn't very well executed, which actually, only had probably a brief cool moment or two, was the Mountain Dew sponsored, what was it called? I forgot what it was called. Black match. That was it. Pitch Black. I was about to call it Lights Out match then, but yes, the match where the lights went out and it looked like the guy who created Naomi's entrance had a field day. It was terrible. Let's face it. I mean, the only thing that looked good was Bray Wyatt's red eyes with the fangs. I quite like that look. But who's gonna remember in 10 years Uncle Howdy missing an elbow drop by a mile on LA Night? But it's not the first time we've had. We've had these sort of matches which we would just call like a gimmick match. I mean, we've had, if you go back to the Attitude Era, what was it? We had that. Was it the match between, was it Boss Man and Ken Shamrock?
The Lion's Den match.
Was it the Lion's Den match or Dog Pound match? Something like that. It was a while back.
I think the difference between this and those gimmick matches, though, this is the first one that I remember where they've actually taken a brand, sponsored it, and then called it that particular match. And exactly. when you think about the years gone by in professional wrestling, it's almost like it's a finger licking challenge match for when KFC were sponsoring the WWE, or the Battle of the Golden Arches if McDonald's was challenging them. I think sponsorship in wrestling has a place. It has a place everywhere, right? But you wouldn't turn around in a professional football match and go, "Oh, this is the Mountain Dew pitch black goal of the night," and the whole arena goes black.
Yeah, I mean,
you wouldn't
I
do
can't
it, would
believe
you?
I even remember this, but one of the WrestleManias, we had the Playboy pillow fight. The Playboy.
Oh my
pillow
god!
fight.
Yeah.
One of the WrestleManias.
I think sponsoring a show has got merit, and I agree with that, because it's revenue, it's capital. They've got to do it, but I think it does go one step further when they bring that sponsorship into the match and they brand everything, into the match. Because let's put it this way: if it was AEW that had done the pitch black match, everybody would be pooing all over it, even before it was announced, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's all elite. All elite have done it. If Impact had done it, it would be all over the dirt sheets. Their Impact have sold out, and they've gone to Mountain Dew to do this type of thing. WWE do it, and what do we go? I'm intrigued to see what it's going to look like. What's it going to be like? Yes, now the match has happened. It's a load of rubbish, but it's sponsorship for the sake of sponsorship, and I think it takes away from the performers, because Eric Bischoff said earlier this week on 83 Weeks that he doesn't like Tony Khan's vision of professional wrestling, right? I don't like wrestling when they really suspend that level of disbelief. And when you're watching a match like the Pitch Black match, which is already going to be a little bit OTT anyway, because you've got this character of Bray Wyatt and you've got Uncle Howdy, and they make it look like Naomi version 3, it loses me. And I think that was part of the reason why the match didn't work, is because it lost the audience. Forget the work rate for a minute. Forget the botch of Uncle Howdy. I think the minute we were told it was going to be pitch black and it was going to be this gimmick and this was going to happen and this was going to happen, we went, yeah, all right, and checked out.
Number one, I think they used it on the wrong match. We had all this build up to finally get Bray back in the ring on a televised product, and they wasted it on that. Second of all, it wasn't pitch black because you could see everything, so that didn't make no sense. So it's kind of like, is it necessary that they create these matches to fit these advertisements for a product and that? And it's, as you said, you lose yourself. I mean, don't get me wrong. If someone had plenty of time to really think about it, I'm sure they could probably make something that really works and actually go, wow, that was genius. But we haven't seen that, and it's almost there for filler just so they can make an extra quick buck.
It is. It's all about the revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, if anything, I'd stick it on the kickoff show.
I just don't think it's got a place, whether or not it's on the kickoff or on the main show. I just don't think it makes you worried about what they're going to do at the big event. So, WrestleMania is 2 nights, right? WrestleMania got WrestleMania Night 1, you've got WrestleMania Night 2. We've already seen a Jackass match at WrestleMania 39, right? What are we going to see at WrestleMania 38? What are we going to see at WrestleMania 39? We had a pitch black. But what has it done to the character of Bray Wyatt? Because now you're associating Bray Wyatt with a comedy match. And it wasn't even a cinematic match. If they'd done the match, if they'd done the match like they did the Funhouse play match at WrestleMania against John Cena, it may have worked because you knew what you were getting. You knew you were going to get a cinematic match, right? But they didn't. They played it off as a proper one-on-one match in the dark. It didn't work. I mean, the Boiler Room Brawl back at SummerSlam 1996 between Mick Foley and The Undertaker and Mick Foley, Mankind, that worked because, it was a gimmick, but it worked. It was legit.
It also fit the kind of personas that they had as well,
This didn't fit LA Knight. This didn't fit Bray Wyatt.
We saw Mankind's vignettes before he debuted. They were all from him curled in cradling in a boiler room. So it made sense because that was where it was. That was where he sort of howled from. His place of origin was in the boiler room. So it works. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the only thing we've seen of Bray Wyatt, we'll get into it when we review. We just go through the shows of this past week. Was behind Bray talking, and then all of a sudden he's interrupted by Uncle Howdy stepping in away, and then like going up to the screen and cuts off. This is at the point now where it's getting frustrating. This whole Bray Wyatt thing is everything is a slow burn. Everything is like a piece of a bigger puzzle, but the pieces are smaller. Are very, very small pieces. And it's getting to a point now where I think people now are starting to get a little bit, frustrated with it now.
I was just about to say, it's got to the point where I checked out. I've got no interest in Bray Wyatt anymore.
I'm
more intrigued. Yeah, I'm more intrigued to see what they do with Sami Zayn, and I'm more intrigued to see what they do with Kevin Owens, and I'm more intrigued to see what they do because it's been going on for too long, and they did all this intrigue and the conspiracy theory and all of this major White Rabbit, which was revolutionary, hadn't been done before. It was brilliant, and you were bought in. And it's been going on for too long now, and I think that's the main problem. And it was the wrong person to do it. All right, fair play to them for trying it. Yeah, I think it's fair to say we won't see a Mountain Dew pitch black match on WWE 2K24, and I hope we don't.
No.
But fair play to them for trying it. It didn't work. I don't think sponsorship matches like that. Sponsor a match like you do in UFC, right? You sponsor a fight or you sponsor a boxing match, but don't make the match more than the sponsorship, or don't make the sponsorship more than the match.
How many in the mid-90s, how many in your house pay-per-views were sponsored by karate fighters, and and that, and then you'd have Jerry the King Lawler throw out, a slogan from,
that's different.
Things like that, But the thing is, as well, as go back to what I said about this Bray Wyatt thing, is I feel like they're slow burning it because they're waiting for something to be pulled, like some sort of trigger to be pulled for WrestleMania. And if that's the case, I would have much rather they had delayed Bray's return until end of last year or at the Rumble, and then had the period between the Rumble and Mania to do the build up to whatever this, thing that they've got. For those who are hoping that these gimmick matches are going to go away, and because the pitch black match by Mountain Dew was awful, got a bit of bad news for you, because in an interview with the Hollywood Reporter, Craig Stimmel, who is the WWE Senior Vice President and Head of Global Sales and Partnerships, gave an indication on what we could expect from the two-night WrestleMania this year. Stimmel would initially explain that the mindset and media exposure that sponsorship has given, using Mountain Dew and Royal Rumble as an example, revealing that the post-match press conference at WrestleMania would also be sponsored, saying, "We're also going to have a post-match press conference that's going to be sponsored this year. You saw that with Mountain Dew and Royal Rumble, but we're going to have that again at WrestleMania. It's on YouTube and on TikTok and on Facebook, so we're going to have a myriad of opportunities to tell a brand story across different spectrums with different voices." So I think when we approach brands, we want to make sure that the holistic picture is in place. We're looking for that audience overlap. Promising surprises at WrestleMania, Stimmel then went on to say, "I don't want to give away too much, but it will be around a match and the sponsorship of that match and what they'll be able to bring to that match. So we're going to do things that fit inside of our storyline as well." In the interview, Stimmel would also single out a new sponsor, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Good Lord. Other sponsors for the upcoming event include Pepsi, Take-Two, and Mars Snickers. So we are getting something at WrestleMania, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So maybe this whole storyline with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline is going to ultimately lead, after Elimination Chamber, for a Sami Zayn versus, Solo Sikoa in a Cinnamon Crunch.
Oh dear. No. And I think on that note, let's move to top picks, because I haven't got the energy to deal with this.
I will say this in the last on the subject. I did like on the tirade that Roman Reigns threw at Sami Zayn, where he did actually mention the Jackass match of Mania last year, where he turned around and said, we gave you everything, and what are you going to do? Go back to having Jackass matches and stuff like that. It was brilliant. But yeah, that's the end of the debate. I don't think anyone wants to see it. WWE, just no.
No.
So
right, we're into top picks. So if anybody hasn't listened to the show before, what is top picks? Well, top picks is when we look back at the week that was and we ask you for your top match, top promo, top angle, top interview, all of the good stuff. So we end it by saying what was the top show or the event of the week. So I'm going to kick it off this week by asking what the top match was. And for me, I'm going to go a little bit different because I think some people are going to go, oh, it was NXT Vengeance Day on Saturday. It was Bron Breakker defending against Grayson Waller and all this type of thing. Yes, it was. And my top match is from that show, but it's the NXT Women's Championship. Roxanne Perez, Gigi Dolan, and JC Jane. Loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I loved the teasing of the animosity between Toxic Attraction. I loved the fact that Roxy was again being put across as the future main eventer, which she already is. Yeah. But I also loved the little bit of teasing the heel of Booker T on commentary in respect of Roxanne Perez, kind of
getting started on him.
Going, okay, shucky, quack, quack, but going against the grain. But I enjoyed the match. I thought it was really good. And for me, it was one of my top matches, closely followed by the NXT Women's Tag Team title match.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Well, first of all, shout out to Booker T. Booker T was absolutely atrocious on commentary. He didn't even know who Pretty Deadly were. I mean, he didn't know who half the bloody roster was on Saturday night. I was absolutely shocked. I really, really was. So, yeah, less said about that again. Mine is not going to be from Vengeance Day. In fact, my top match isn't going to be from WWE at all. I'm going to actually go with Dynamite, and I'm actually going to go Samoa Joe versus Darby Allin for the TNT Championship.
And the return of Wardlow. Yeah. I mean, that was a cracking match, though. And great to see Joe back in the squared circle again.
Yeah. He looked fantastic. We know Darby Allin's going off to do a couple of side projects. He's going to be starring in a movie. So that's why he dropped the title. I know a few people were surprised at how quick he's dropped the title. But Wardlow coming back and attacking Samoa Joe without a ponytail. He's had a haircut as Wardlow. Looks really good. Looks mean as hell. But yeah, what a great match. I was on the edge of my seat throughout. And that's what I do love about AEW is sometimes they can really, when not everything else is going great, they've got a diamond in the rough that they can just put out there and just make you just appreciate what you're seeing.
And you will be sat there going, oh, it's Warlow again. It's going to be War Joe again. It's another match of those two. But if they book it right, this could be good. And I think give them time and let them go out and just have the match. And
I think also it benefits with the fact that Samoa Joe, since he had his injuries and stuff like that, he's gradually starting to get back to the Samoa Joe that we know, and I think he lost that for a while, and we're seeing that again now, and I think that will only benefit Wardlow as well as AEW. So that's my pick.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, where are we going to go next? Are we going to go to the top promo or vignette? And I think. I'm going to speak for both of us here, but I kind of think there's only one way we're going to go, and that's SmackDown, and it's the Bloodline, and Sami Zayn. I think it has to be, right?
Well, there wasn't really a promo.
Okay.
Was it? I mean, that was more angle, wasn't it? I think top promo or vignette, I think is a little bit of a tough one. I think I'm actually going to go with the. What are you thinking, Andy?
I'm actually going to change my mind now you've said that because you're right. It is a top angle. I'm going to go to Impact Wrestling, Bully Ray and Mickie James.
Okay.
Which was just a cracking promo where basically Bully Ray just came out and cut the best heel that he can do. And Mickie James came out. And they had a bit of a 2-8. Of course, they're on Busted Open as well, the US podcast on Sirius. So they're kind of bringing it over. I thought it was great. And Impact Wrestling, for me, has been a joy to watch. It is a joy to watch Impact. I'm going to go as well and say that NWA Power Live wasn't too bad a show. But there was nothing in there that I would bring into top picks, but it wasn't too bad a show. Go on, what's your top promo?
I think I'm going to have to go with I don't know if it was a promo, but I don't know if this really class. Yeah, no, I know the difference. I'm just wondering if it could technically be classed as a promo. I'm going to go with the MJF locker room segment.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
The way he just turned around and said, translate like loser or whatever it was, or translate dickhead or something like that. And then when he gave like when the answer was quite long, and then he just turned around and said, "What did he say?" And he just went, "You're on," and he went, "That sounded a little bit longer than than you're on," and then just said, "Get the job done," and walked out. I like that. That again showed how good MJF is. Just like that, I enjoyed that.
I'm getting a little bored of MJF.
I'm not.
I don't know why I'm saying that, but I am. I'll tell you what I am missing though.
Go on.
Nikita Lyons.
Oh, for goodness sake.
It was great seeing her on the pay-per-view. Anyway, changing subject. Even if it was in the promo. Go on then. What is your top angle from any promotion? This one has to be the Bloodline, right?
It is. It's the pre-Owens Reigns match at the Rumble. The entire imploding of the Bloodline was absolutely cinematic glory. I just thought it was so well executed. I really felt the war within Sami Zayn. I really don't want to do this. You're really pushing me to that. And when he just pulled that trigger, but not only that, just how significant it might be. Jey Uso walking out, and the fact that on SmackDown they've said they still can't reach Jey Uso, and then having Sami then attack Roman and then really give it to Roman head on and just saying, "I want to take what you've got. I want what you've got," and that's the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. I loved it.
I'm calling it. I'm calling it. There's going to be a title switch. I don't think it'll be at the Chamber, but there's going to be a title switch.
Yeah. There's got to be. I still think it's going to be not night one, Sami Zayn, night two, Cody. I've just got this feeling. I think that's the best way to book it as well. I mean, you can still keep Reigns looking strong because he's had to wrestle 2 matches back to back, and if he's going to have to face Cody. Literally less than about 24 hours after dropping one of the titles to Sami Zayn, it plays a part in him going into that match with Roman. It makes sense for me, and I think that's the best way to book it, in my opinion. I would.
Right, let's go top superstar, any promotion. This has been a tough one for me. Go on, you've got your hands up already. You're going, I know it.
It's Sami Zayn. It's Sami Zayn. It hands down, it's Sami Zayn. I mean, it's not just, as I said, just because of what happened at the end of the Rumble pay-per-view. It was the way he was on SmackDown as well. I loved it. It showed that he's not scared of a man that's been, essentially almost been manipulating and bullying him. And, he gave everything to the Bloodline. In Reigns, picked and chose when to trust him, when to, push him and make him do things and all that sort of thing. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I've got to give it to Sami Zayn. I have to.
I don't want to go with Sami Zayn because it's going the same way all the time.
You don't have to.
I kind of think I should, but I don't want to because it's going the same way. I'm going to go Roman Reigns.
Okay.
Just to play the obvious one. All right. So what is the show of the week? This to me is tricky because the Rumble was a fairly good show. Monday Night Raw was okay. SmackDown was good, but only really for the Bloodline segment.
Yeah,
Dynamite had moments.
Yeah.
And Vengeance Day was a mixed bag. So it's a tricky week.
I think we should exclude Rumble from this because it was, last week. I don't even know if we should put Vengeance Day in there because we've had NXT and it was, a pay-per-view, and I think it should be kept solely to, the normal weekly shows. So Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Impact,
Rampage,
Power.
NXT.
Yeah. I'm going to go this week. I'm going to go Dynamite.
I think I might have to join you purely because of the Wardlow Samoa Joe Darby Allin.
There wasn't much on Raw and SmackDown that really grabbed my attention or captivated me in terms of in-ring action. There was, as I said, there was some backstage segments that I enjoyed on Dynamite, and like I said, there was a couple of good matches on there, especially leading the way with that was Joe and Alan.
Dynamite gets it for both of us then. So top promotion, I think if we're going for top show being Dynamite, it's got to be All Elite for top promotion, right? For both of us. Ooh.
No,
you're going WWE, aren't you? Because of the Sami Zayn angle.
It's not. It's the how. I mean, I suppose in a way WWE gets a little bit of an upper hand because they have Raw and SmackDown in the same week, and whereas AEW don't tend to do much in terms of linking Dynamite and Rampage together. It's kind of like they're separate things, whereas WWE sometimes carry things over. I'm gonna.
You know what? In the off time, we're going to talk about the amount of gaps you do.
No, I know. I'm indecisive. I can't help it. Do you know? Yeah, I'm gonna go WWE.
You're going to go WWE. I'm going to go AEW. So there it is. That's top picks for this week. And I think next time we want to hear from you and let us know what your top picks are. 077-243-12752 on the Twitter machine. Not on the Twitter machine, on the WhatsApp. Going to get your very own little bit of the bubbly. You can tweet us at Wrestling TSC, Instagram us at TSC Wrestling Podcast. Comment on this video at YouTube at TSC Wrestling Podcast, or on Facebook or on Twitter.
Yeah, and we are going to go out with
Andy. I forgot about this. Who am I?
Who am I?
Oh.
Okay, so this is where Andy has to try and guess who this wrestler is or person involved in wrestling within 5 questions. They get easier as you go along. Don't forget, we are sponsored by Wrestle Merch Central, so a big shout out to them, guys. Thank you for your support. Get over there for some absolutely outstanding merch. Okay, Andy, question number 1. I was born in Halifax, Virginia on July 27th, 1991.
1991?
Yes.
Oh, man. Really? I was 10. No idea.
Okay. I started my career in 2008.
No.
I received my first big push in 2016 after joining a very well-known stable.
Randy Orton.
In 2016? Who did Randy? Which stable?
I don't know. Go on. No idea.
Okay.
What the God is this?
At Ring of Honor Final Battle in 2013, I lost to Matt Hardy.
Ring of Honor Final Battle. If Stephen Sutton was listening to this now, he would be shouting at his headphones. To Matt Hardy. No, don't know.
Oh dear.
Yeah, this is bad. This is bad for me.
The easiest question of all of them. My nickname is Cowboy.
Oh, Adam Page. No, that's the Hangman, James Storm. It's not Adam Page. That's Hangman Adam Page.
No. I said my nickname is in line with a cowboy.
Oh, the Hangman.
Because if I said my name is Hangman,
right?
obvious,
okay, right. You're going to get payback is coming for you. I swear to God. I think a new game is in order. I need to come up with a new game. I really do need to come up with a new game.
Well, do it.
I will. Don't worry. Just before we go, I just kind of want to play shout out to friend of the show, the genius Lanny Poffo, who passed away last week. You would have heard it at the beginning. A lovely tribute by Lee Tyers, formerly from the Squared Circle back in the day. When the news broke about Lanny, I mean, it was a real shock because it was only 24 hours earlier. He'd been posting things on Facebook about being in New York. for those of you who don't know Lanny Poffo or don't know the work that he did, he was much more than the genius. And I don't think I could echo it any more than what Lee said in that tribute. But our thoughts and condolences go out to the friends and family of Leaping Lanny Poffo, the genius Lanny Poffo, whatever you want to call him. He was much more than just the brother of the Macho Man, Randy Savage. He was a legend in his own right. And it's scary to think that 24 hours and a whole life changes.
Yeah, he was a great advocate for many, many things. I mean, he was, one of the huge reasons that we finally got Macho Man into the Hall of Fame. It was a wonderful speech. I loved footage of him talking about Randy's, when they were kids and throughout his career, and a great insight to a very private, sometimes life that Randy had. But the things that Lanny's done and the things he's experienced. I mean, he's had one hell of a life around wrestling, and from being in the ring to everything else he's done. It's very, very sad. He's one of those individuals that I've very much enjoyed listening to and watching interviews with, and it's one of those sad days, and I just hope that it's not going to be one of those years where we're going to lose so many.
Hopefully not. I mean, when I first came onto this show, when I first started doing podcasting, was with Lee back on the Destiny Talk Radio Network, DTRN, Lee's audio network that he created. Lanny was one of the first people that we had on this. He was the first person on this show with Lee, and he was one of the first people that I ever interviewed with Lee as well. And such a genuine guy. And it's such a shame. And as we said, thoughts and condolences to the friends and family of Leaping Lanny Poffo, a Hall of Famer in his own right.
I was one of those young fans that, because I used to like some of the heels back in the 80s and early 90s, like Ted DiBiase. I used to love the Fabulous Rougeau Brothers. I think I'm probably the only fan, even to this day.
I love the music.
Best entrance theme ever, All American Boys. Love it.
Yeah, love the music.
I really enjoyed Lanny when he would do the Genius, when he would stand in there and he would do a recital with his robe and how I loved all that. And sometimes when you'd see him showboat, where he'd do his almost like signature cartwheel, I think it was just so entertaining. I used to go, this is ridiculous, but it was so great.
Yeah.
And what a sad loss.
And of course, Saturday Night's Main Event in 1990, that win over Hulk Hogan, unconsidered at that point. You didn't believe anybody would go over Hogan on NBC, but it did, and he got that win. Brilliant guy, and as we said, thoughts and condolences. Anyway, we're going to wrap up the show very soon.
Yeah, that'll do it for this week.
Well, it's not. It's not yet, because coming up this week, hopefully, either by the end of this week or the beginning of next week, will be an exclusive TSC Talks with Big Con from Impact Wrestling. Stefan had the opportunity to speak to Con last week. We have that footage. We have that interview. That will be released on the stream in the next few days. So stay tuned to that. We'll put it all over social media. The video will be up on the YouTube channel. So check it out. Great interview there. By Stefan.
I want to give a big shout out to Impact, Simon and Big Con. It was a pleasure to interview with him. A tremendous guy, a guy that I liked in NXT. I was a big fan of the Ascension in NXT. Unfortunately, got called up to the main roster during a time when WWE had some great tag teams, but just didn't do very much with them. Tag team wrestling was almost like an afterthought, and I actually put that to Big Con in the interview, so check that out. Massive thank you, and again, thank you, Andy, for the opportunity as well to do another wonderful interview. So look forward to everyone checking that out.
Now, next week, we may not be live. I'm going to be traveling. I've got some audio. I've got some echo coming. Is anybody else got it? I can hear myself. We may not be live next week because of the fact that I'm actually going to be traveling with work. We will try and do a live show. but can't guarantee that it will work. So stay tuned. We will put something up on YouTube and on the audio feed at some point next week. We will be back the week after that. There are going to be a couple of weeks over the next couple of months where we won't be live because of my work diary. But until you hear from us, we will be live. So join us each and every week right here on YouTube, right here on Facebook, and on Twitter for the Squared Circle Live. And one last thing. You don't even know about this.
Oh, surprises. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
The prizes are coming. Well, earlier on in the show, you would have seen some comments appearing by Pro Wrestling Dorset. Well, Pro Wrestling Dorset is a brand new promotion that's opening up this year within Dorset, as you say. Well, the Squared Circle Wrestling podcast are going to be working with PWD. We're going to be helping them promote their shows, which takes place in November. And I can announce that either one or both of us, depending on travel arrangements for Mr. Bennett, will become the new face commentary team for Pro Wrestling Dorset. We will be joined by a couple of other people on the booth. So it'll either be myself and two others, or it'll be myself and Stefan and a couple of others. But we will be part of the commentary team for Pro Wrestling Dorset, joining Dan as the MC. So big thanks to Sam for the opportunity to come and do some work with you at PWD. We love working with local promotions and giving back and working with them to help promote shows. So if you have got any shows or any events that you would like us to be a part of, then let us know. Any promoters out there, let us know. And we'll do what we can to help. But that's just a bit of news. Pro Wrestling Dorset, we're coming.
Brilliant. Can't wait for that. And I just want to give a couple of shout outs to my two promotions I work for. We've got massive shows coming up this month on Saturday, the 18th of February, live from the Falconwood Community Centre in London. UKPW presents Blizzard Brawl. Get your tickets to see that. We're going to see the Kid Without Fear, Danny Black's going to be in action. We're going to see Bullet. He's going to be in action. Alexander Ruff, the Wolf of Wall Street, is going to be in action. And then Elite Wrestling Entertainment, EWE, have their show on Sunday, the 26th of February. That will be at the Bedford in Balham. The big main event, the long story build up, brother versus brother. Bullet defending the EWE Championship against his brother Arcadius, who won the Battle Royale just last weekend. Grab your tickets, designmynight.com for that. Check out UKPW social media to get links to tickets for the Blizzard Brawl show. So, yeah, that'll do it for this.
Do you know what the annoying thing is? I was meant to be at the Bedford in Balham on March the 12th.
Well,
but instead I've got to go to Manchester. So I'm not going to be there.
It happens. But anyway, thank you very much.
That's it for us.
Appreciate it. Thank you. We will see you very soon.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye.